What's up, real life kids? I just want to say I miss you so much, but I'm so glad you decided to join us for church today online. Welcome back to our series called Tell Me a Story. In this series, we're talking about the greatest stories that Jesus ever told, and these stories are called parables. And if you remember, a parable is a story with a spiritual meaning. Now, how many of you are good at spelling words? So I'm gonna spell a word, and I want you to tell me what word I just spelled, okay? The word is G-R-E-E-D. What does that word spell? If you say greed, you are correct. Now, greed is a word that refers to a big desire to want more and more and more stuff. There is no such thing as enough. You want it all, and you want it now. Now, today we're going to talk about the dangers of this word we call greed. And Jesus told a parable in the Bible to illustrate the dangers of greed. So for you to find out what this story is, check out this video.
Hey there, my name's Down Fax. I was just checking out some of the online stories that were released today. You know how much I love the news, especially the stories with action, adventure, and happy endings. Oh, well, this one certainly doesn't fit that description. This is a funeral announcement. It appears that the richest guy in town, Bucks Goldsmith, died in his sleep last night. This is really sad, but this is huge news. Bucks had a massive amount of money and possessions. This has the potential to become the biggest funeral in the history of our town. But I'm gonna need some more facts on this. I'm gonna have to go check it out. Well, this must be the place, but there's hardly any cars here. For such a huge funeral, there should be plenty of people here. Excuse me, miss. Is the funeral over?
Yeah, it is.
Huh. Did you know Mr. Goldsmith?
Yeah, I did. I live 2 houses down from his mansion.
A mansion? Wow. It must have been huge.
Yeah, it was a pretty big place, but now that he's gone, it'll stay the exact same size that it is.
What do you mean?
Well, there's something you need to know about Bucks Goldsmith. He was obsessed with money and stuff. The more stuff he had, the happier he was. The thing is, as big as his mansion was, he was constantly running out of room from all of the stuff that he had. He had a 6-car garage, but that wasn't enough. He tore that one down and made it so he could get 7 more packed in there.
Wow.
Wow was right, but that wasn't even the half of it. Buck Goldsmith was totally nuts about his possessions. He wanted to get exercise and sleep at the same time, so he replaced his bed with 30 giant trampolines.
That sounds pretty cool.
It might sound cool, but all he ever cared about in life was money and possessions. He had a golden microwave, a 3-story arcade, and a submarine for his giant swimming pool. But that wasn't enough. I don't think he ever had any friends or family that I knew of. Only this big house full of stuff, which is why nobody's at his funeral.
Well, that's pretty sad, but thanks for giving me all this information.
You're welcome.
Interestingly enough, this Bucks Goldsmith guy sounds exactly like one of the parables that Jesus told in Luke chapter 12. It's the parable of the rich fool, and you are going to learn about it in your lesson today. It's about how there's more to life than just money and stuff. And you have to be careful to put God number 1 in your life, not like money or possessions. Well, I better get back to work. I've got to let everybody know the facts I've learned here today. Well, see you around.
Wow, that poor guy just couldn't get enough stuff, could he? In fact, he loved his stuff so much that he totally lost every relationship he had in his life. And today we're going to learn how God never wants us to love our stuff more than we love Him. You see, greed blinds us to the fact that God has given us everything we have in our lives, and we should never put our possessions and money before God in our lives. So we're going to check with our friend Wiggy Pop, and he's going to teach us what you got to know today.
What you gotta know, what you gotta know, what you gotta know, what you gotta know. Yeah! Hey there, boys and gals. My name is Wiggy Pop, and I'm here to have a rockin' time teaching you what you gotta know. Today, we are talking about another parable that Jesus told. The parable of the rich fool. So every time today you hear somebody ask you what you gotta know, you tell them, I love God more than my stuff. Some people have lots of stuff. It's true. Did you know that I have a collection of air guitars? I have over 2,450 air guitars, and I keep them nice and neat. In fact, I put them in alphabetical order. I love my air guitars, but I could never love them as much as I love God. I'll never love stuff more than God. I keep him number one. Number one. And I put him first. You should do the same thing. You should put God number one in your life, way above your toys, your money, or your possessions. So every time somebody asks you what you gotta know, you tell them, I love God more than my stuff. And that right there is what you gotta know. This is Wiggy Pop, and I'll see you next time. Rock on!
Okay, today's Bible story is called The Parable of the Rich Fool. We're going to be taking our lesson from Luke chapter 12. Jesus was teaching a large group of people. All of a sudden, while he was teaching, a man interrupted Jesus and began complaining about someone who owed him money. Can you imagine that? The man was so concerned with his money that he thought it was way more important than hearing what Jesus was teaching. Jesus knew that there were many people in the crowd who loved their money and the stuff they own way more than they should. So he told them a story of a rich man. The man owed a lot of stuff. In fact, the man owned so much land, cattle, grain, and stuff that he didn't even have enough space to store it all. One day, the rich man was looking out on all the land that he owned and the possessions that he had and said to himself, I will tear down my barns and build bigger ones to hold all my possessions. He didn't think to share his stuff with the poor or give to the church or anything like that. All that he thought about was himself and his stuff. At that very moment, God spoke to the man, You fool, you're going to die tonight, and then who will get everything you worked for? That is exactly what happened. That night, the man died. He had been so focused on his stuff, but now his life was over. How much of his stuff do you think he got to take with him when he died? That's right, none. Jesus was making a point with this story. He was teaching the people that focusing on money, possessions, and stuff is not worth it. All that stuff is worth nothing when you die. Greed is not something we should allow to be in our lives. It causes us to focus our time, energy, and passions on money and stuff. Instead, you should focus your time, energy, and passions on the things of God. Only a relationship with God will matter once you die. All the other stuff won't matter at all. Today in your lesson, you're going to learn that it is important to become content with what we have and stay away from greed. This is a lesson that could change your life.
My name is Roxanne Teast, but nobody goes by Roxanne anymore, so you can just call me Artiste. I am in the middle of a wonderful masterpiece right now, but I need to take a break. So while I'm taking a break, why don't you help me with today's power verse? The problem is I sleepwalk at night, and last night I started painting the power verse, but I was using pictures instead of words. And now I have no idea what it was supposed to say. So why don't you help me? Let's look at it together and see if we can find out what it's supposed to say. Ah, it's another sheep. We've seen that one before. We know what that is. It's you. You soda. No, not that. You drink. No. You can. Ah, yes, you can. Tied up. No. You can not. Oh, you cannot. Wow, we got it. You cannot serve God and I think I've gotten this one by now. That is B. You cannot serve God and be enslaved to dollar signs. No, not quite. Maybe it's cash. No, I've got it. It's money. Luke 16:13. Yes, that's it. I'm so glad you could help me. Now we must make sure that we don't forget it. So everyone stand up and let's say it all together on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. You cannot serve God and be enslaved to money. Luke 16:13. Great job, everyone. Well, I've just finished my favorite masterpiece I've done so far. Do you want to see it? All right, let me show you now. This is a masterpiece of my hometown of Rogersville. But nobody calls it Rogersville anymore. It's just Arville. But would you like to see the horizon cityscape of Arville, my hometown? Here it is. Did I mention that my family is the only family to live there? Well, that's my house right there. Population 3.5. But you see, my cat Bubbles lost a few legs, so we only count him as half now. But that's it. That is Arville. Don't you love it? It's absolutely beautiful. Oh, it touches my heart. Well, thank you so much for your help on today's Powerverse, everyone. I'll see you later, boys and girls. Goodbye.
Hey kids, we're continuing to learn about this important parable that Jesus shared in this story. I have a question for you. How many of you have ever wanted to be rich? And I mean super rich, where you just have so many things and so much money that you just don't know what to do with it. Have you ever dreamed of having a big house with a swimming pool in the back, with a 100-inch flat screen TV, with the latest video game system and all the games that has ever been created? Do you think that would be cool? I think that would be cool, right? But what did we learn today in our Bible story? We learned about a man who had everything he could ever want. And what happened to him at the end? That's right, he died without God in his life. You see, all these things that he had, it didn't matter, because at the very end, he didn't have God in his life. And so what is one thing we can learn from this story? The first one is this: nothing is worth more than your relationship with God. Can you say that with me? Nothing is worth more than your relationship with God. You see, in the end, it didn't matter how much stuff the rich man had, right? He had all these things, but at the end, what happened to the stuff he had? Nothing. He just lost it all, right? There was nothing he can do with the stuff he had whenever he died. And so, what is one thing we can learn from that? That the stuff in our lives, guess what? Doesn't really matter as much as our relationship with God. So we see that this man was rich. He had everything. He had a big house. He had lots of cattle. He had barns full of things that he owned in his life. But in the end, it didn't matter. So this guy was rich when it came to things, but he was actually very poor when it came to spiritual things. When it came to his relationship with God, he didn't have it. So he was poor without God. So another thing we can learn from this is that money and stuff won't last forever. Can you say that with me? Money and stuff won't last forever. Now, I know a lot of us have lots of stuff in our house, right? We have toys, we have games. For example, some of us might have a fidget spinner. I know you guys like fidget spinners. I love playing with these things, right? what else might you have in your house? You might have some Play-Doh you can play with, and it's fun, right? I'm not saying Play-Doh is a bad thing to have in your life, right? But you might have Play-Doh and you enjoy playing with Play-Doh, and that is totally okay. And some of you guys might actually have a video game system like a PlayStation, an Xbox, or a Nintendo Wii U, all kinds of video game systems. And I have to say, I do have a PlayStation 4, y'all. I love PlayStation, and I love to play my PlayStation, right? And I actually brought some games with me today that I want to share with you. I brought 3 of them, okay? The first one is Madden. I know a lot of you guys like sports, and a lot of y'all like to play Madden. This is actually Madden 15, so it's not the latest Madden, but it's still an awesome game for PS4. And then I believe a lot of us like superheroes, right? We sing about superheroes all the time at Kid Church. We love to see superheroes, and I have 2 superhero games for my PlayStation 4. I have Batman, and I have Spider-Man. And let me tell you this, by the way, if you're listening to this, do not tell Mr. Sean that I'm saying this, okay? Liam, Grady, if you're watching, tell your dad to go away for just a few seconds. If I have to pick, kids, between Batman and Spider-Man, which was the best superhero, y'all, I would have to say Spider-Man all the way. Now, Mr. Sean's gonna say Batman, okay? But Spider-Man's the best. Go Spider-Man, all right? All right, Grady, Liam, you can tell your dad he can come back, all right? But we have all these video games, and it's awesome, and we love playing games, and we love to have a good time with your friends with the stuff we have. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing in our lives, but what I'm saying is that at the end, whenever we have the chance to meet face-to-face with God and go to heaven, guess what? The stuff we have in our lives is not going to matter. So in this parable, the rich man, all the stuff he owned in his life, whenever he passed away, he lost it all. It didn't go with him. It was gone. It was wasted, right? And that's the same with all of us, that the stuff and the money we have in our lives is not going to matter, because what matters in our lives is our relationship with God. If we're spending all our time, all our energy, and all our passion on our stuff and money, and we miss having that relationship with God, then we're missing what is important in our lives. While all this stuff is fun, we need to make sure that we make our relationship with God the number 1 priority in our lives. And that's my 3rd point today. My 3rd point is, I must make God number 1 in my life. Can you say that with me? I must make God number 1 in my life. And that is super important, kids. And that is one thing we can learn from this story. The parable of the rich man, he had everything he could ever want. And a lot of times in our lives, we're going to want stuff. A lot of times we're going to be tempted to be greedy and want more and more and more stuff. But what I want to share with you guys today is that at the end of the day, while it's so much fun and cool to have these things, what matters the most is our relationship with God. And we must make our relationship with God number 1 in our lives, because that is the most important thing that you could do in your life. So work on that. Make sure that we're spending time with God. Make sure that we're reading the Bible. Make sure that instead of giving all our time and energy to our toys, to our video games, to Madden, to our Spider-Man game, because Spider-Man's the best superhero, make sure that we are spending our time and energy in getting close to God. Let's not be like the rich man who gained the whole world, who had everything he could ever want, but missed the most important thing, which was the relationship with God. Let's make sure we make God number 1 in our lives. So let's pray that God would help us do that. God, we love you. God, we thank you for everything you've given us in our lives. We thank you for the stuff. We thank you for our toys. We thank you for our games, God. But Lord, like we learned in our lesson today, I pray that we never put our games before you, but that we put you number 1 in our lives, God. And I just pray that we would do that every single day, that everything we do, that we would spend time in your word, that we would spend time getting to know you, and that we would always make you number 1 in our lives. God, we love you. God, I pray for the kids who are watching today. I pray that you be with them, that you be with their families, that you allow them to have an awesome week this week, and that we would put you first in everything we do. In your name we pray. Amen. Well, kids, I'm so glad you joined us today. Was that an awesome lesson or what? Remember, put God first in everything you do. Have a great week, and I hope you would join us back next Sunday as we continue our series, Tell Me a Story.